It began before you knew what a beginning was, not with a moment, not with a choice, but with repetition so quiet, so constant, that it never announced itself as influence, a voice not loud, not demanding, but familiar. And because it was familiar, you called it yours. But consider this carefully. If a voice speaks in your mind, and you never chose its words, never authored its tone, never questioned its arrival, in what sense does it belong to you? There is an assumption most never examine, that the inner voice, the one narrating your life, judging your actions, predicting your outcomes, is a natural extension of your being. It is not. It is an accumulation, a construction, an installation. Long before you formed sentences, sentences were formed around you. Long before you understood meaning, meaning was assigned to you. You should. You shouldn't. This is right. That is wrong. This is who you are. This is who you are not. None of these began as your thoughts. They were given, repeated, embedded, and repetition over time to something peculiar to the human mind. It erases the memory of origin. What was once external becomes internal. What was once heard becomes believed. What was once imposed becomes identity. This is the mechanism of installation, not force, not control, but familiarity. The voice did not need to convince you. It only needed to stay, and it stayed, through correction, through approval, through subtle reinforcement. Each time you were praised, a pattern was strengthened. Each time you were rejected, another was carved deeper, and slowly a structure formed, a voice that now speaks before you act, a voice that evaluates before you experience, a voice that predicts before anything unfolds. And because it is always there, you assume it must be you, but observe it closely. Does it not contradict itself? Does it not change tone, depending on circumstance? Does it not echo phrases you have heard before? It praises in borrowed language. It criticizes in inherited tones. It fears in conditioned patterns. It is not original. It is recursive. The inner voice is not a source. It is an archive. And yet you obey it. You shape your decisions around it. You measure your worth through it. You hesitate because of it. Without ever asking who is speaking, this is where the illusion deepens. Because the voice does not present itself as a suggestion. It presents itself as truth. It says, this will not work. You are not ready. You always fail. This is not for you. And you do not question it, because it does not sound foreign. It sounds intimate. But intimacy is not evidence of authenticity. It is often evidence of repetition. The more you hear something, the less you examine it, and so the voice continues, unchallenged, unseen, uninterrupted. It narrates your life as if it were its author. But narration is not authorship. There is a distinction, subtle yet absolute, between the one who speaks and the one who hears. And this distinction, when seen clearly, begins to dissolve the illusion. Because if you can hear the voice, then you are not the voice. You are prior to it. You are the space in which it appears, and what appears is not what you are. This is not a concept. It is an observation. Sit quietly for a moment. Do nothing. Do not try to control thought. Do not try to silence anything. And watch. The voice will continue. It will comment. It will label. It will attempt to maintain its position, but something in you is simply aware of it. That awareness is untouched. It does not argue. It does not judge. It does not narrate. It observes. And in that observation, a realization begins to form. The voice is not constant. It comes and goes. It rises and falls. It changes, but awareness remains unmoving, unshaped, unaffected. The voice depends on you, but you do not depend on it, Without your attention, it loses its authority. Without your belief, it becomes sound without weight. And this is where something shifts, not dramatically, not suddenly, but subtly. The voice still speaks, but it is no longer followed blindly. It is heard, but not obeyed, seen, but not believed. And in that space, something else emerges, not another voice, but silence, not empty, not void, but clear, a clarity that does not come from thought, a presence that does not need narration. This is what existed before the installation, before the conditioning, before the repetition, before the identity was assembled. It was never lost, only obscured. The voice did not create you. It covered you, layer by layer, word by word, pattern by pattern, until what remained visible was not your essence, but your conditioning. And now, for the first time, you are beginning to see the difference. This is not about removing the voice. That would be another form of control. It is about seeing it for what it is, a mechanism, a pattern, an echo, not a self. Because the moment you believe that the voice is you, you begin to live secondhand, reacting instead of seeing, repeating instead of understanding, becoming instead of being. But the moment you see that the voice was installed, something loosens. You are no longer confined to its narrative. You are no longer limited to its predictions. You are no longer defined by its conclusions, because none of them originated from you. They were inherited, and what is inherited can be observed, and what is observed loses its grip, not through effort, but through clarity. And clarity does not fight, it reveals. It reveals that the voice is not your authority. It reveals that thought is not identity. It reveals that what you are cannot be spoken, only known, silently, directly, without interpretation. The installation was never the problem. Unawareness was. And now that unawareness is dissolving, not because you forced it to, but because you finally looked, and in looking, you saw. And in seeing, something ended, not the voice, but the illusion that it was ever you.